Hello, Dazzle. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me today. I'm glad that you are here. Today I'm going to be talking about Dark Souls again, because I'm a bit obsessed with this game. The concept of human consumption in Dark Souls is a deeply symbolic and integral part of the game's lore and mechanics. The game is renowned for its intricate world building, challenging gameplay, and profound thematic elements. Among these themes, the notion of humanity as a resource that can be consumed is one of the most intriguing. This idea is woven into the fabric of the game's universe, serving as a critical mechanic for survival and a metaphor for deeper philosophical and socio-political reflections. By examining the role of humanity in Dark Souls, we can uncover how the game reflects existential concerns about meaning, existence, and the relentless demands of capitalism, which shapes the experiences of the characters and the players who traverse this dark and unforgiving world. In Dark Souls, humanity functions as a literal consumable item, an object that players can acquire, use, and lose. It can be collected from enemies or found in the world, and it has several functions. It allows players to become human rather than hollow. It can kindle bonfires to increase healing resources, and it is required for multiplayer interactions. This mechanic immediately ties humanity to the existential struggle central to the game. To exist is to possess and consume humanity, a resource that is finite and easily lost upon death. From an existentialist perspective, the player's repeated cycle of gathering and losing humanity is akin to the human condition described by philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, a constant struggle against a meaningless universe, where meaning must be created through actions, even if those actions are repetitive and seemingly futile. The cyclical nature of losing and regaining humanity in Dark Souls mirrors existentialist ideas about the absurdity of life. The game places players in a world where death is inevitable and often repeated, echoing Camus' notion of the myth of Sisyphus, where Sisyphus is condemned to roll a boulder up a hill only for it to roll back down endlessly. The player, much like Sisyphus, is condemned to a similar fate, battling against seemingly insurmountable odds and facing the same enemies repeatedly in a world that does not seem to change. However, in Dark Souls, as in existentialism, there is a glimmer of autonomy. The player can choose how to navigate the world, what battles to fight, and how to allocate their precious humanity. In doing so, they assert their existence and carve out meaning in a hostile universe, much like Sartre's assertion that existence precedes essence. Parallel to its existential themes, Dark Souls also critiques modern capitalist society by presenting humanity as a scarce and consumable resource, highlighting the commodification of human existence. Within the game, humanity can be hoarded, traded, and even farmed, making it a commodity subject to the same forces of scarcity, demand, and value that define real-world economics. This reflects how, in a capitalist society, the very essence of human life and labor is commodified. Individuals are reduced to their economic potential, and their worth is often measured by their productivity and consumption capacity. In Dark Souls, characters such as the crestfallen warrior or the merchants express a kind of resignation to their roles within this bleak economy, embodying Marxist critiques of alienation, where people are estranged from their essence due to the commodification of their existence. The player's role in this economy is both active and passive. On one hand, they are consumers of humanity, compelled to gather and use it strategically to advance and survive. On the other hand, they are producers, constantly laboring in the world of Dark Souls to defeat enemies and obtain souls and humanity, perpetually caught in a cycle that mirrors the labor market under capitalism. Every death results in a loss of humanity and souls, which represents not only failure but also the brutal consequences of a system that is indifferent to individual suffering. This economic dynamic forces players to make calculated decisions about risk, reflecting the capitalist principle that every action has an opportunity cost, and that every failure is penalized by the market, or in this case, the game's mechanics. The game world of Dark Souls is itself a testament to the excesses and eventual decay of a system driven by endless consumption. The game is set in the dying world of Lordran, where the Age of Fire is coming to an end. This world, now ruled by gods who themselves consume humanity to sustain their fading power, illustrates the destructive cycle of consumption without renewal. The gods, such as Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, have effectively burnt out their own existence in a futile attempt to extend their rule, much like corporations that exhaust natural resources or human capital in pursuit of endless growth. The hollowed citizens of Lordran, mindlessly wandering in search of souls, reflect a workforce that has been drained of purpose, reduced to mere husks by the ceaseless demand for production and consumption. Bonfires in Dark Souls serve as sanctuaries within a perilous world, acting as checkpoints where players can rest, level up, and replenish their healing items. They are the rare places of respite amidst the relentless challenges that the game imposes. The act of kindling a bonfire, by consuming humanity, becomes a critical mechanic directly tied to the player's survival and progression. Kindling a bonfire increases its effectiveness, granting the player additional Estus flasks, which are essential healing resources. This process symbolizes a small yet significant act of defiance against the encroaching darkness, as players use humanity, a precious and finite resource, to sustain their fragile existence. The act of kindling reflects both a moment of choice and sacrifice, reinforcing the idea that survival in Dark Souls is not merely about enduring hardship, but also about strategically using what little humanity remains to gain a fleeting advantage. It becomes a metaphor for the human condition itself, the need to find light, however dim, in a world overshadowed by despair, echoing existentialist themes of finding purpose amidst meaninglessness, and the relentless drive to persevere within the constraints of a consuming system. Humanity in Dark Souls also plays a pivotal role in shaping the game's multiplayer elements, forging a direct link between the concept of humanity and the player's ability to connect with others. Only in human form can players summon allies to assist in their journey or invade other players' worlds in search of conflict. This duality of cooperation and competition underscores humanity's significance as more than just a survival tool. It becomes a gateway to human relationships in a world otherwise characterized by solitude and hostility. The act of using humanity to engage in multiplayer interactions reflects the intrinsic human need for connection, whether to seek help in overcoming seemingly insurmountable challenges or to test one's strength against others. However, these connections are tenuous and fleeting, much like humanity itself, which is always at risk of being lost through death. This system forces players to carefully manage humanity, weighing the benefits of human connection against the constant threat of loss. It mirrors the real-world existential struggle of forming and maintaining relationships under conditions that are often unforgiving and unpredictable, where every act of reaching out to others carries both the potential for great reward and significant risk. Beyond its practical uses, humanity carries profound symbolic weight. The game is set in a dark and decaying world where the cycle of life, death, and rebirth forms a central theme, constantly reminding players of the fragility of existence. As a consumable resource, humanity represents the tenuous connection between the player character and their human essence, serving as a metaphor for the struggle to retain one's identity and sense of self in a world that relentlessly erodes both. Consuming humanity allows the player to regain human form, reflecting the desire to hold on to one's humanity in the face of despair and meaninglessness. This mechanic underscores the existential struggle to assert one's being and preserve a flicker of life in a universe that seems indifferent to suffering. Humanity, therefore, becomes a symbol of hope and resistance against the encroaching darkness, an embodiment of the player's will to continue, and a reminder that even in a world overshadowed by decay, there is still something worth fighting for. The chosen undead, like many other inhabitants of Lordran, is afflicted by the curse of undeath, a condition that slowly strips away the individual's humanity over time, ultimately reducing them to a hollowed state. Hollowed beings are mindless, decaying shells, devoid of purpose or self-awareness, forever trapped in a state of suffering and madness. The player's constant struggle to regain and retain humanity is a reflection of a broader human struggle against entropy, despair, and the erosion of self-identity. Every action taken to restore humanity is a conscious resistance against this inevitable decline, a fight to maintain one's sense of self in the face of a consuming darkness. This ongoing battle against hollowing symbolizes the human condition, the effort to hold on to one's essence amidst forces that threaten to strip away purpose and meaning. It is a powerful representation of the struggle against existential dread, the fear that, without effort and choice, one might succumb to a state of meaningless existence, much like the hollowed who wander aimlessly, consumed by the endless repetition of an empty fate. In the lore of Dark Souls, humanity is intricately connected to the concept of the soul, serving as both a literal and metaphorical measure of a person's essence. The more humanity the player possesses, the more connected they remain to their human nature, and the greater their strength and influence in the world. This connection is reinforced by gameplay mechanics. As the player accumulates humanity, their resistances to various ailments increase, and their item discovery rate improves, making them more resilient and resourceful. In this context, humanity functions as a representation of the soul's vitality and its ability to endure in the face of overwhelming darkness. It symbolizes the player's inner light, their capacity for hope, and their potential to reclaim power even as the world around them deteriorates. The accumulation of humanity becomes a metaphor for spiritual fortitude, a tangible measure of the player's struggle to resist the forces that threaten to consume and hollow them, highlighting the enduring strength of the soul against despair and decay. The act of consuming humanity also reflects the profound moral ambiguity that permeates the world of Lordran. The player is frequently confronted with choices that blur the lines between good and evil, survival and sacrifice, forcing them to navigate a landscape where moral absolutes are rarely clear. Using humanity to restore one's human form or to gain a strategic advantage in battle becomes a metaphor for the compromises and ethical dilemmas that define the human experience. It illustrates the tension between self-preservation and the cost of that survival, between the desire to maintain one's humanity and the willingness to consume a finite and precious resource, often obtained from fallen enemies or other lost souls. This act suggests a complex moral calculus. Every decision to consume humanity carries with it an implicit acknowledgement of the cost, echoing real-world ethical choices where survival, ambition, and the preservation of self can demand difficult, sometimes morally gray decisions. Thus, humanity becomes more than a mere game mechanic. It symbolizes the fraught choices that shape the essence of human existence, in a world where clear-cut answers are rarely available. For the player, the consumption of humanity is both empowering and alienating. It grants strength and the ability to interact with others, but it also ties them to a system that constantly demands more from them, creating a sense of dread and inevitability. This mirrors the real-world experience of being a consumer in a capitalist economy. One gains status, comfort, and power through consumption, yet is always haunted by the knowledge that these are temporary states, dependent on continued participation in the system. The cycle of life, death, and consumption in Dark Souls becomes a potent symbol for the existential and economic conditions that define contemporary existence, a constant negotiation between the need for survival and the quest for meaning. The decision to consume humanity is always fraught with a delicate balance between risk and reward. When the player chooses to restore their human form, they must carefully weigh the immediate benefits, such as increased health, the ability to summon allies, and access to various multiplayer interactions, against the ever-present threat of losing that humanity upon death before reaching the safety of a bonfire. This dynamic generates a constant tension, forcing players to meticulously manage their resources and consider the potential consequences of each action. The act of consuming humanity becomes a strategic gamble, reflecting the precariousness of existence itself, where every choice involves risk and every gain is shadowed by the possibility of loss. This tension mirrors real-life decisions where individuals must often balance short-term needs against long-term goals, making Dark Souls a compelling exploration of human resilience, prudence, and the pursuit of purpose in an unpredictable and unforgiving world. The concept of humanity as a consumable resource in Dark Souls serves as a profound commentary on both existential and capitalist themes. Through its intricate mechanics and storytelling, the game presents humanity as a fragile, finite resource that must be constantly acquired, managed, and defended, reflecting the broader human struggle against meaninglessness and the dehumanizing effects of a world driven by consumption and loss. The need to kindle bonfires, summon allies, and avoid hollowing symbolizes the desire to maintain one's identity and essence amidst chaos and decay, echoing existentialist ideas about finding meaning in a seemingly indifferent universe. At the same time, humanity's commodification within the game's economy critiques capitalist values, where human life and connections are reduced to transactions and resources. By weaving these themes into its challenging gameplay and dark, atmospheric world, Dark Souls invites players to reflect on their own existence, the choices they make, and the systems that govern their lives. It challenges them to find purpose in persistence, to forge connections despite the risks, and to resist the forces that threaten to strip away their humanity. Ultimately, Dark Souls is not just a test of skill and endurance, but a meditation on what it means to be human, in a world that demands both strength and sacrifice in the face of inevitable loss. Well, that's about it for my rambling today. Thanks for coming and spending some time with me. If you like my rambling, then click on that like button. It really does help. Until we talk again, you take care of yourselves.